next, we've got Nathan Birdwell. He's the district tree superintendent with the County of Los Angeles Public Works, representing my department. And he is going to go over how we handle tree asset and work order management. And I think.
Good morning, everyone. And my official title is actually the Roadside Tree Superintendent. I am the operations manager for all of the tree assets within the unincorporated Daly County and in the flood control districts. Three years ago, we started the process of collecting all of our data into a GIS format. And we had a contractor collect all the data into the GIS format, into ArcGIS. Prior to that, we had utilized, can everybody see my screen, John?
Yes, I can see it. We're not, you're not in presentation mode. It's just the slides.
Oh, okay.
I think if you click on slideshow at the top and then start slideshow.
I did this yesterday, I promise.
There we go. And then, yeah, you got it. That should kick it in.
Well, it actually popped up in a different screen, but I'll just go from here.
Yeah, that'll work.
So basically, prior to us moving all of our data into an ArcGIS format, we had been utilizing a maintenance management system. It's called MMS, and all of our data had been collected in the format of linear, where it was just basically books and books of data. And it had become time consuming. It was based on tiered and tied in with row code. It was time consuming data. It basically, you actually had a lot of people entering the data because you had crews go out and collect this data in a format that was in the books. Is basically we just took our data and we would go out with pen and pencil and we would go out and collect this information. And then it would be brought back into the district office and they would transpose that written data into the computer format that can then be printed and given to the contractors. In 2018, we started the GIS upgrade and we basically gave those books and all of the knowledge that we had in regards to our assets to a contractor to go out and collect this data in a GIS format. And on the right, you can see this was the completion of what it looked like after we were done. Then what that did is this is the format that it looked like in MMS, where you actually, each one of these, it was web-based, so it was really slow and frustrating to work with. And then this is what it looks like when it's been moved over into an ARC format. So it was a little more, it was easier for the crews to be utilizing this technology in the field. And they could be collecting this information either on a cell phone, iPhone, iPads, stuff of that nature. You could actually download it into an offline setting so that you could utilize it up in the mountains or in areas that you had no cell coverage. This is what the previous work order aspect looked like in MMS. Again, it was linear data. It was multi-tab. You actually had to go between one screen to another to be able to utilize the inputting of the assets themselves or the information associated with the work orders. And then you tied your assets into it so that they would actually talk to each other, but it was real time consuming. You had engineers that would be in the office on overtime entering this data from the notes. You had student workers entering it, and it was really time consuming. So with the GIS format with the work orders, then we were able to then utilize a visual form. It let the crews see what had been completed. It allowed for the superintendent to be able to see that the crews had completed their work, and they could then actually go in and visualize what had been completed. You could attach photos to the data, and it allows for continuity for the completion of the work. This is the standard schema associated with the assets and to the work orders as well. Basically, it's just your standard schema. It's really geared towards the operation so that we can actually have a standardized process to allow for analytics. Whenever you needed to add or take away something, you're just hiding something from them so they're no longer utilizing that field. And you can actually conform it to what is needed within the parameters associated with whatever job you're doing, whether it be for your tracking of the assets, of how much work has been completed within the confines of a project. In regards to projects, you could actually, this is the work orders, where you could actually track how many trees are being planted within the work orders, how many tree removals, stump removals, stuff of that nature. Our main priorities obviously are trimming. And then obviously the secondary thing is the removals, because they can obviously cause issues with the public if they were to fall, causing damage to people's property. This is how we track what's going on, how many work orders have come in, how many have been completed. We're able to take this data, utilize it so that it's easily modified and corrected as needed. Within our contracts, a lot of times we have contracts that total over 6,000 trees. So when you're trying to manage a large contract of that nature, you can actually track what the contractor's been done, what's the contractor's been doing, how many trees are being trimmed, how many trees are being removed. During your contract surveys, you can actually track the crews as they go through the surveys to collect the information, to be able then to put it out to the contractor so that they can actually get in to do the work. This is the very end of it. So basically this dashboard here covers up here in the upper left-hand corner how many active trees we have, what the conditions of those trees are. You can separate it out by the maintenance districts. You are also able to separate it out by the task codes that are associated with the work orders that have been completed. Then you have your active work order statuses. So these can all be expanded as needed. You got different tabs associated with whatever. So 2020 trimming, how many trees did we trim in 2020? How many plantings so basically we could track how many trees are being trimmed, how many trees are being removed, and how many trees are being planted throughout the course of the year. So basically that's the long and short of it. It's taken a little over 3 years to try to come up with a comprehensive way of managing this, and it's a day-to-day process. And nowhere am I like the other participants within this talk. And that's pretty much it.
Right on. Thank you for sharing that. I think, many of the people attending this event are familiar with the AGOL suite of tools, and they're incredibly powerful tools, to collect data, visualize data in real time, and then provide management and administration with accurate analytics and dashboards. They've really come a long way with their tool set, and this is a great example of that. I do have some questions from another chain here. Let me see. Okay. This is a technical question. Are you using related tables to track the inspections and the tree work?
Yes, they are. They basically, you can attach the object ID code or the asset ID code into the confines of the work order so that there's a continuity of what is being done to individual trees on a one-on-one basis. And yes, this wasn't developed internally with the help of obviously the company. It was Arbor Pro Incorporated. They are the ones that actually collected the data for all of the assets in the field. And then we obviously because they have a proprietary program, and then we just converted it over into ArcGIS for our ease of use within Public Works.
So what you presented represents one aspect of the type of work that you guys do and the data collection. Are there other programs in your division or even at the department that could benefit from similar approaches?
Yes. So basically, we've been internally, we've been collecting the information associated with all the removals within flood control, the flood control channels, easements, and debris basins and such of that nature, so that we could actually track the amount of removals that are being done within the flood control areas. We've also just completed the review of, we also had Arbor Pro go out and start collecting all of the assets for the landscape maintenance districts, the backup subdivisions that are slope easements. So we have a lot of vegetation and assets up in those areas, such as, irrigation, controllers, backflows, such of that nature. So the trees was the start of that, because obviously we had a profile associated with trees, and we were able then to acclimate from the roadside aspect into the landscape maintenance districts, and we just completed that. So yes, there is other aspects, and we're also looking into moving into a work order management system for the road maintenance side of it, the road side of the house.
Nice. Another question, and I think this is a common question across agencies that are trying to implement these types of things, because you basically streamlined what we were doing. It was a paper process, and now we've made it digital. Were there some challenges educating the field personnel on how to use the tools? Was there a little resistance, or did it go pretty smooth?
That there was a little bit of both in regards to that, because you got some guys that are, this is how they'd come up with, using maintenance management system. They were familiar with it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that they could use that. Well, eventually we just actually had to just, bite the bullet and say everybody's going to be using ArcGIS. Once everybody had adopted it, it's been a very good transition into utilizing the program for the whole operation. And they actually have turned it into kind of a video game where they can track how many work orders they got coming into the system and how many they've completed. Their same thing with their assets, how many stumps you got hanging out there. I mean, we had one district, we had over 300 stumps in one district because they hadn't been being taken care of through the maintenance management system. Well, we were able to identify those stumps with just a status of stump, and we could actually track those and then be able to get them ground out so that they're no longer a tripping hazard. And then that obviously opens up a place to be able to plant a new tree.
Thank you. And I think sorry, go ahead.
And then, we got several younger guys on the crews as well. So your younger crew members have actually taken to the use of the program like ducks to water. They basically just grabbed hold of it and ran with it, and they've actually come up with a lot of different ideas. And the beautiful part about it is that we're able to, it's a very conformable program. If you see something, then you can actually, a trend on something aspects, then you can actually add to your drop down. One thing is that you want to keep your stuff standardized so that it doesn't allow for subjective. It's very literal. This is a tree that's going to be removed. This tree is going to be trimmed. And you want to have that kind of within the confines of your work order aspect as well. It's just basically drop down. You only allow for the free flowing or the open interpretation, like your notes and your comments, but the stuff that you really are trying to track based off of what I was showing you within the dashboards, you keep those very stringent. They can only do this, because if you allow for open interpretation within certain aspects, they will then kind of go off topic, and then you're losing the data.
Yeah, very, very true. There's one other thing I wanted to note, just because I'm kind of familiar with this effort. I believe in the past, people would collect the data in the field, come back and have to re-enter it into another system. That's no longer the case. We've saved a lot of time, money, effort with that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So one thing is, after we had started this transition, one of the gentlemen with business support group had asked that, because they were doing an upgrade to the maintenance management system. And they said, well, what if we try to move your data over from ArcGIS? So basically have a link between the two. And I said, okay, let's see what'll happen. Well, I get a call about 2 days later and said, you guys got so much data, and it's not very, it's not allowing for a good transition. It's actually breaking MMS. We're going to actually have to stop this process, because we can't actually do what we need to do within MMS. And I said, no problem. Just, we're actually off on our own, doing our own thing. So we're seeing that it's working, and we're going to continue moving forward with it.
Yep. No, thank you very much, Nathan. And just one other note, I know, so one of the barriers to entrance for using this suite of software is user accounts. And that used to be a challenge to try to maybe educate our management on the benefits of this tool. But as we develop more and more of these applications, they start to see the value. And, paying a certain amount for a single user account actually ends up saving us money in the long run, when we can streamline things like this using these tools.
Yes, that's been one of the major things. But now that one thing that I've learned in this whole process is that if you can show the bosses in a really 1 or 2 page presentation associated with what you're accomplishing within the overall, they like the pictures. They don't like looking at reams of data. They don't like looking at the linear aspects. I mean, I can give them the linear aspects, basically lines of data from ArcGIS as well, but they really like seeing, this is how many work orders have been completed. They like seeing how many trees have been planted. They like seeing, okay, I can actually get back to the board office of how many trees were removed, how many trees were planted, and how many trees were trimmed, with basically a click of a mouse. And the whole goal with this program is to where, if I can get my division head or my deputy director to be able to turn their computer on and make a very, literal click of the mouse, and this is the answer that they need to be able to then get that up to the director or to the board of supervisors, that's the easiest way for me, so that they're not actually having to wait for the information to come from, the district offices.
Nice. Yeah, thank you once again. You were very important in this process, because you were able to bridge the gap between, management and the field workers and the technology. So kudos to you and your team. You guys did a great job. That's hard to do sometimes, to, set up all those different communication channels. So
yes, that's the main thing, is that you actually get buy-in from your bosses, and then also getting buy-in from your field staff, so that they're actually utilizing it, so that you can then get those answers back to the bosses.
Cool. All right. So did you want to share anything else? Are we
I saw Eric Morgan. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, especially in the years ahead, cooling. Yeah, this basically allows for us to be able to track the amount of trees within a specific area. We're also going to be in the future expanding this and trying to allow for the equity studies, so that we can actually have very poignant and localized, we need to plant trees here, or we need to spend more time and outreach to these communities to be able to get more trees in these areas. So there's a lot of possibilities. We got something coming on in the next year where they're going to be doing flyovers, and that will then correlate to this data as well. so that we can actually have the health of the trees based off of camera footage or aerial footage, that it will actually tell us what the trees are doing using LiDAR.
Yeah.
So thank you for your time, though.